Hey, folks, and welcome into episode 9 of the Longhorn Mailbag. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. We're answering your questions from our board over on horns247.com. Let's jump right into it, starting off with our favorite weekly segment, the True False segment from our good friend Ranger's Dad. Now, last week, I had my best True False of the year so far. 6-1 on my predictions overall. So we're going to try to keep things consistent here from here on out. Started off the year a little rocky, but we're looking up right now. So starting off with our first one this week, number one, Texas will lead by double digits at halftime. I'm going true here. Steve Sarkisian has talked a lot this week about how he wants Texas to get off to a better start in games offensively and really just play sound football, consistent football throughout all four quarters. I think this is a lot of emphasis on that in this game so that they can prove to not just us beat writers, but the world that they can play all four quarters and not just have to score 21 in the fourth like they have the past two games. So I'm going true here. Plus, not trusting Baylor's offense too much in this game, especially considering how well Texas's defense has been playing as of late. So I think Longhorns have the lead at halftime in this one. I say exactly 10 points is the lead at half this coming Saturday. Up next, Texas defense will force 3 turnovers. I'm going true here. Sawyer Robertson, the quarterback for Baylor, who we'll touch on a little bit more later on in this video, has thrown 3 interceptions in his last 2 games. Longhorns, I think, will get another 2 and a fumble in this game at least. Just the way that Robertson has been playing a little bit sloppy, and the Longhorns have done a phenomenal job of forcing quarterbacks into bad throws or maybe sneaking away into a spot where they can't see him on a read and coming up and stealing an interception. Jaron Thompson has done that the past 2 games. So I'm saying the Longhorns force at least 3 turnovers in this one. Up next, Texas will have over 450 yards of total offense. I'm going to go false here, and it's just because I need to see more out of this offense before I can start saying true. Now, the Longhorns have the weapons to go over 450 yards really in any game, but they just haven't shown it yet to me. So I'm going to go false here. Plus, Dave Aranda is a good defensive-minded coach, so I think his defense will come ready to play. I don't think they get over 450 yards in this one. Once again, it's kind of a prove it game for me for this Texas offense. They need to show me that they can be consistent, move the ball around, and run the ball as well, which we'll touch on later as well. Up next, Texas will have a running back go over 100 yards rushing. So right back into the running game. I'm going to go true here. I think Jonathan Brooks does it again this game. We talked about last week with Cedric Baxter being out that Jonathan Brooks would probably be the bell cow. He ended up doing that. He rushes for over 100 yards the first time that Longhorn running back has done that so far this season. I can see him going back-to-back in this one, back-to-back 100-yard games against Baylor. Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson ran the ball very well against Baylor last year. I think Jonathan Brooks has the same success this year. Cedric Baxter's status still kind of up in the air. No need to rush him into this game, I don't think. So if JB is the bell cow again, count him for, on my end at least, for going over 100 yards once more. Number 5, Texas will have 3 sacks. I'm going true here. I think Texas will get after an offensive line of Baylor that just simply has not played a lot of games together. A couple of transfers and some freshmen on the offensive line. So I think this is a veteran enough group for Texas that they can get pressure on Sawyer Robertson and bring him down. We saw them get pressure last week against Evan Svoda, but he was able to get out of the pocket a little bit. I don't think Sawyer Robertson is as mobile. Still a mobile quarterback, but not as mobile. And I think that the inexperience on the offensive line for Baylor will end up costing them, especially against such a veteran group up front for Texas that rotates a lot and has fresh legs on the field most of the time. So I'm going true here. Number 6, Quinn Ewers will continue his streak of no interceptions. I'm saying true here as well. Like I said earlier, Dave Aranda's defenses are always formidable just because he's that good of a defensive coach, in my opinion. But it didn't cause Quinn Ewers any problems last year. No interceptions against the Bears last year. So I don't think this year this defense is any better per se. So I don't see him turning the ball over in this game. I think he stays clean on the slate and moves forward into week 5 without any interceptions to his name still. Number 6. Oh no, sorry, that was the last true false segment. So 6-1 in my segment last year. Let's go ahead and see if we can get to 6-0 this week. So we'll find out Saturday night. Coming up for our first question now from Tip Off, Texas. Why is Jalen Catalon not played more during games? Are they easing him back or are they saving him for conference play? So there's really no official word on whether or not Jalen Catalon is maybe being limited or has a pitch count per se. But I think there is something on him a little bit. We didn't see him as much in the Alabama game, and that's kind of when I started to raise my eyebrow a little bit about it. But as far as Wyoming goes, Jalen Catalon actually played the same amount of snaps as Jaron Thompson, which was leading the safety group. So Jaron Thompson and Jalen Catalon, 34 snaps apiece. This is all from Pro Football Focus, by the way, as far as snap count. So they led the safety group in snaps that game. Keaton Crawford had 33, Derek Williams 27, Michael Taft had 12. So I think that maybe not seeing on the field as much is less about him as a player, maybe him being concerned about injury, but more of just about the rotation that Texas is able to have at that position, the depth that they have at that position. Really have four or five guys that they're confident enough to put on the field at the same time. So I think the rotation is a heavy piece of that, but maybe Catalan as well is on a little bit of a pitch count too. So keep an eye on that going forward. We'll see now if things maybe start to open up in conference play and there's less rotation and more just relying on two or three guys. But so far, Pete Kwiatkowski has rotated a lot of guys really across the board defensively. And so far, it's worked out really well for him. Like I mentioned earlier, it keeps fresh legs on the field and makes it harder for offenses who maybe are a little bit more tired later into the game. Next up from T. Diddy 21, what other tricks could Big 12 teams have up their sleeves to try and disrupt Steve Sarkisian and Pete Kwiatkowski? So in this, he's mentioning the fact that Evan Spoda started at quarterback for Wyoming instead of Andrew Peasley, the veteran quarterback, which Craig Bowl and the Cowboys kept very quiet up until game time, and when Andrew Peasley was announced that he would be out with an undisclosed injury. So Evan Spoda comes in, a younger, more inexperienced guy. I believe it was only his second start with Wyoming, maybe his first. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's fair to say, as far as what other teams will do in their approach to the Longhorns, that every Big 12 team is going to have an ace up their sleeve in one way or another. Texas is going to get the best version of each opponent that they play on their conference slate this year, not just because Texas is leaving for the SEC in 2024, but because I think really Texas is one of the teams to beat in the Big 12. If any of these teams want to compete for a championship, Texas is one of the teams that you have to go through, one of the contenders, top contenders, in my opinion. So if I had to pick one thing that I see Big 12 teams focusing on when Texas comes into town, I think it's going to be trying to take away the passing game. Simply put, it's no secret that Steve Sarkisian wants to move the ball around and especially throw it downfield to his talented wide receivers. But if that's taken away from him, they have to adjust. And sometimes Sarkisian hasn't been good with adjusting. Now, these past three games, he has adjusted very well in the second half and allowed the offense to put points on the board. We've seen that with back-to-back 21-point outings in the fourth quarter. But it could cause trouble if there's more talented teams that do that in comparison to a Wyoming, for example. Obviously, Alabama very talented, and those adjustments worked perfectly for Sarkisian. He was able to move the ball downfield as well. But maybe if we see teams like Baylor drop an extra defensive back in coverage and make it harder to throw the ball, you maybe look more towards the middle with JT Sanders, which frankly has worked very well during his tenure. You try to put more of an emphasis on the run game, which is why Jonathan Brooks was able to have such a great night this past week against Wyoming. So things like that are what you have to look for when they try to take away the deep passing game, which Steve Sarkisian likes to go to. You focus more on the intermediate game. And I think Quinn Ewers has been great in the intermediate game when he's not rushed and he's not getting into his own head. Last week, you saw him overthrow a couple easy throws, make a couple throws that he certainly wants back. The one that stuck out to me was the kind of soft toss to JT Sanders in the end zone that was almost and frankly should have been intercepted. But really, when he's getting throws out quick on screen passes and allowing guys like Xavier Worthy to work the sidelines and get some speed into open space, that's the kind of stuff that I think we're going to see more and more of, just because the deep shots are going to be well protected, and sometimes the middle of the field may be well protected as well. So that's why you see a heavy amount of those play calls. But eventually, you are going to have to throw the ball downfield and be able to work the middle if you want to win football games in the Big 12. So nonetheless, you're going to get the best from each Big 12 team because Texas is what Texas is. So really an ace up every sleeve, I think, for every Big 12 team. Hopefully that all made sense and clicked together. We're going to close off here with some quick hits. Cole Hudson and Chris Ross are out for 3 to 4 weeks. Steve Sarkisian announced on Monday. Hudson was kind of rotating in with DJ Campbell over there at that right guard position. Chris Ross was doing the same, coming off the edge, finally getting some playing time over there. Blake Shapen, the quarterback for Baylor, is out with an MCL injury that he suffered against Texas State in their opener. So it is Sawyer Robertson who will be the quarterback. So far this season, Robertson 28 of 62 for 444 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. So not expecting too much from this Baylor offense. I think this is a game where Texas's defense is very much going to shine because of it. So keep an eye on that. And last but not least, as I mentioned, CJ Baxter will be monitored this week. Still unclear whether or not he will play, but he was at practice on Monday. So those are your quick hitters. And that will do it for episode 9 of the Longhorn Mailbag. I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Plus, turn on notifications so you are the first to know when new content heads your way. And last but certainly not least, keep an eye on the horns247.com board on Sunday mornings for the Longhorn Mailbag question drop thread, where you can ask your questions about the Longhorns for a chance to have them answered right here on this show. So for the rest of the crew, I'm Tommy Yarrish. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.